Why did you do this to me? I loved you so much.
Anna had everything most people could only dream of: wealth, influence, and a last name that commanded respect in every business circle. Yet behind her radiant smile and sophisticated wardrobe, there was a young woman yearning for something far more valuable than status, a real connection. Her days blurred together in a carousel of board meetings, charity galas, and elegant dinners where everyone seemed more interested in her surname than her soul. In this emotional story, Anna's longing wasn't for luxury, but for someone who'd see her as more than just the CEO's daughter. She often found herself staring out of the massive glass windows of her father's corporate tower, gazing at the cityscape below, wondering if anyone out there could understand the ache in her heart. People envied her life, but they didn't know the loneliness woven into her daily existence. Even in rooms filled with hundreds of people, Anna felt like a solitary island, detached from the world around her. That's the paradox of privilege. It looks dazzling from the outside, but can feel hollow within. And so this touching story begins not with romance, but with quiet yearning. Her closest friends, though fiercely loyal, couldn't quite grasp the depth of her craving for authenticity. They saw her as the golden girl who had it all. Why would someone like Anna ever feel incomplete? But Anna knew better. Having everything doesn't mean having what truly matters. She longed for someone who'd love her messy laughter, her unguarded thoughts, and her wild dreams, things most people never took the time to see. It's a real story of how even the seemingly perfect lives can hide the deepest desires. Every week, Anna sat at her father's side during high-stakes meetings, observing power plays and negotiations, absorbing the language of business like second nature. Yet all the while, she wondered about the language of love, something no boardroom could ever teach her. She felt trapped in a narrative written by others, the ambitious heiress destined to expand the family empire. But what about her own narrative? That silent question kept echoing within her as her story unfolded, waiting for the moment life would finally give her an unexpected answer. The walls of her luxurious penthouse apartment, though adorned with art and surrounded by opulence, felt colder than ever. Late nights, she'd curl up with a book or stare at her phone, scrolling through images of ordinary couples laughing at coffee shops or holding hands in parks. Those simple moments felt more distant than any of her father's global business ventures. This emotional story of Anna wasn't about lacking material things, but about craving what money couldn't buy: genuine affection. She often reflected on how ironic it was that someone so celebrated could feel so invisible. At social events, men approached her with calculated charm, their eyes glinting with interest, but not in her, in what she represented. It became exhausting to constantly question people's motives. This pattern hardened her exterior, but inside, Anna remained a woman aching for someone to break through that emotional armor. And little did she know, her life was about to shift in ways she could never anticipate. Just as the monotony of her high-profile life seemed inescapable, a new force quietly approached, one that would soon challenge every belief she held about love, trust, and identity. Isn't that always how these emotional stories unfold? When you least expect it, the universe stirs, setting into motion events that change everything. And for Anna, that stirring was already on its way, though she couldn't yet see it on the horizon. The first time Anna saw Ethan, he wasn't making a grand entrance or commanding attention like so many others in her world. He was simply there, leaning casually against the elevator wall, reading something on his phone. Yet there was something about him that instantly made her pause. He carried himself with effortless confidence, a kind of quiet charisma that didn't need to shout to be noticed. In this emotional story, that silent presence would soon ripple through Anna's carefully constructed life. Unlike the men she was used to, those who recited their resumes within 5 minutes of meeting her, Ethan didn't seem fazed by who she was or the power her last name carried. That alone was intriguing, almost disarming. Most people tiptoed around Anna, either out of fear or opportunism, but Ethan treated her like a person. His glances weren't loaded with expectation, his words weren't drenched in flattery. It was as if he didn't even know or care that she was the CEO's daughter, and that in itself was intoxicating. Anna's friends noticed the shift in her almost immediately. They teased her about the way she perked up whenever Ethan entered the room, or how she lingered just a bit longer during those incidental office conversations. But it wasn't just about physical attraction, though undeniably Ethan was easy on the eyes. It was about the mystery he carried with him. No one seemed to know much about his past, and in a place where everyone's resume was practically public domain, that made him all the more fascinating. It felt like the beginning of one of those touching stories where fate intertwines two unlikely souls. The more Anna watched him, the more she realized that Ethan's confidence wasn't arrogance, but something more layered. He was professional, respectful, but never submissive or overly deferential. In meetings, he spoke with conviction, yet he listened more than he talked. That balance was rare in her world, where power was often performed rather than quietly embodied. It made her wonder, who was this man who moved so assuredly through her father's company, seemingly unaffected by the intimidating environment? What Anna didn't know but would soon find out is that people like Ethan don't just walk into your life without reason. There was a complexity behind those calm eyes and charming smiles, something that would later upend everything she thought. She knew about him, but for now, all she could do was steal glances from across the conference room and wonder what it would be like to peel back the layers of his story. And let's be honest, isn't that what makes a real story so captivating? That irresistible pull toward the unknown? Days turned into weeks, and with every casual exchange, whether a polite nod in the hallway or a brief chat by the coffee machine, Anna found herself more drawn in. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something. Curiosity, fascination, and maybe even a little hope. Hope that finally, someone had entered her life who wasn't playing a game, someone who could be different. But then again, hope is a tricky thing, isn't it? Especially in an emotional story like this, where appearances can be so beautifully, tragically deceiving. And so, as Ethan continued to settle into his new role at the company, unknowingly, or perhaps knowingly, capturing Anna's attention more with each passing day, the stage was quietly being set. A connection was forming, subtle yet powerful, that neither of them fully understood yet. But as every compelling emotional story reminds us, it's often the connections we don't see coming that end up changing everything. It started innocently enough, an extra glance here, a faint smile there, but before Anna could even process what was happening, her feelings for Ethan had quietly transformed into something much deeper. She wasn't the kind of woman to fall easily. Years of guarding her heart had made her cautious. Yet with Ethan, it was different. There was a magnetic pull that defied logic, the kind of emotional story you hear about in novels but never quite believe could happen in real life. Every interaction left her replaying their conversations in her mind late into the night. His voice, his laughter, even the way he leaned against the desk while talking about mundane office matters, all of it lingered like a song she couldn't get out of her head. Anna found herself looking for reasons to pass by his department, inventing tasks that might lead to a casual encounter. She knew it was foolish, maybe even a bit reckless, but that's the nature of touching stories. They often begin with the simplest, most human desires. Her friends noticed almost immediately. "You've got that look," one of them teased over lunch, prompting Anna to blush and deflect the comment with a laugh. But inside, she was torn. Pursuing someone within her father's company, That was a line she'd never even considered crossing. The potential fallout from such a relationship was enormous, not just personally, but professionally. Yet, the more she tried to suppress her feelings, the stronger they seemed to grow. Isn't that always the way with real story romances? The heart refuses to listen to reason. Anna wrestled with herself constantly. By day, she maintained her composed professional demeanor, sitting through meetings and strategizing corporate moves like the executive she was expected to be. But by night, her mind was consumed with thoughts of Ethan, what he was doing, what he was thinking, whether he ever noticed the way she looked at him. The emotional turmoil was exhausting, yet exhilarating. It made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. She began to notice the small things about him, the way he always held the elevator door open for others, how he scribbled notes in the margins of reports, the subtle kindness in his eyes when speaking to colleagues. These details, insignificant to anyone else, became precious to Anna. They fed her growing affection, making her believe that perhaps there was more to Ethan than just surface-level charm. This emotional story was becoming more layered with each passing day. Still, doubt lingered. Was she misreading the signs? Did he even see her as anything more than the CEO's daughter? The fear of rejection, compounded by the risk of workplace gossip, kept her paralyzed. She longed to express her feelings, to confess the burgeoning affection that now colored every interaction, but something held her back. Perhaps it was the voice of reason, or perhaps it was self-preservation. Either way, her secret crush remained just that, a secret, and as Anna continued to navigate the delicate dance between desire and discretion, she had no idea that forces beyond her control were already at play. Because as in so many emotional stories, love is rarely simple. And sometimes, when you think you're writing your own narrative, someone else is already holding the pen. Just as Anna began contemplating the possibility of revealing her feelings, an unexpected presence entered the scene. Daniel, a close friend of Ethan's, and someone who seemed to know him in ways that no one else at the company did. Anna first encountered Daniel at a corporate networking event, where his casual familiarity with Ethan immediately caught her attention. Unlike others who spoke of Ethan with admiration or envy, Daniel's tone was more complex, almost guarded. It was the kind of moment that, in any emotional story, signals a turning point you don't see coming until it's already upon you. In a quiet conversation by the bar, Daniel revealed something that made Anna's pulse quicken, not out of excitement, but out of dread. He implied in no uncertain terms that Ethan wasn't the man she thought he was. There were layers to him, motives she hadn't yet glimpsed. Anna tried to brush it off, telling herself that Daniel was perhaps mistaken or even jealous. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and as every touching story reminds us, doubt has a way of growing in even the most fertile heart. Suddenly, every interaction with Ethan began to feel different. Where once she saw charm and authenticity, now she began to wonder if those traits were part of a carefully curated persona. Was his interest in her genuine, or was it a calculated move? The tension between her heart and her instincts grew heavier with each passing day. Anna had always prided herself on her intuition, but this situation, this real story, was more complicated than anything she'd ever faced. Meanwhile, Daniel continued to hover on the periphery of her life, offering subtle warnings without explicitly divulging all he knew. His behavior frustrated Anna. If he had something concrete, why not just say it? But perhaps like her, he was caught in the murky waters of conflicting loyalties and half-truths. In every emotional story, there comes a moment when the protagonist realizes that the ground beneath them is shifting. And for Anna, that realization was now impossible to ignore. Caught between her affection for Ethan and the unsettling revelations from Daniel, Anna found herself in the throes of an unexpected and complicated love triangle. It wasn't the romantic fairy tale version she might have imagined in younger days. This was messy, confusing, and emotionally draining. Yet, paradoxically, it also made her feel more alive than ever. That's the strange power of emotional stories. They awaken parts of us we didn't know were sleeping. The lines between truth and deception blurred as Anna tried to piece together who Ethan really was. Every conversation, every shared glance, now carried a subtext she wasn't sure how to interpret. And through it all, Daniel remained a constant, his presence both a comfort and a challenge. She found herself wondering, was Daniel warning her out of friendship, or did he have his own hidden motivations? The emotional stakes were rising, and Anna was at the very center of it all. As the tension mounted, Anna realized that choices had to be made. But which direction should she go? Trust Ethan and risk betrayal, or heed Daniel's warnings and potentially walk away from something real? It's the kind of dilemma that defines every great emotional story. And though Anna didn't know it yet, the truth was barreling toward her faster than she could have ever anticipated. The revelation came not with a dramatic confrontation, but through a slow, agonizing accumulation of facts that Anna could no longer ignore. Pieces of conversation she had previously dismissed now resurfaced with chilling clarity. Confidential documents, whispered rumors, and subtle shifts in Ethan's behavior all pointed to the same devastating truth. His intentions had never been about her heart, but about her status. It's a painful reminder that even in the most heartfelt emotional story, love can sometimes be nothing more than an illusion. The moment Anna confronted Ethan, her voice trembling but resolute, he didn't deny it. Instead, he offered a carefully crafted explanation, cloaked in half-truths and vague justifications. He spoke of ambition, opportunity, and survival in a ruthless corporate world. But not once did he mention love. For Anna, this wasn't just the betrayal of a budding romance, it was the shattering of the trust she had so carefully extended. Every touching story has its heartbreak, and this was hers. In the days that followed, Anna vacillated between numbness and rage. She replayed every moment they'd shared, questioning what had been real and what had been manipulation. The memories that once made her smile now cut deep, like shards of glass lodged in her chest. It was the kind of real story pain that transforms a person, forcing them to confront not only the deceit of others, but also their own blind spots. How had she not seen it coming? Yet, even amid the devastation, Anna found herself marveling at the sheer complexity of human motives. Ethan wasn't a cartoonish villain. He was a man driven by ambition, perhaps even desperation, navigating a world that rewarded cunning over sincerity. This realization didn't lessen the sting of his betrayal, but it did offer Anna a deeper understanding of the messy realities that define emotional stories like hers. Life, after all, isn't black and white. It's 1,000 shades of gray. Her father, ever the shrewd businessman, had warned her countless times about trusting too easily. But Anna had wanted to believe that love could transcend power dynamics, that authenticity could exist even within the walls of a corporate empire. This experience, however, left her questioning everything, not just Ethan's intentions, but her own capacity to judge character. It's a bitter lesson, one that many touching stories carry at their core. Sometimes we must break to rebuild. As the dust settled, Anna withdrew from the social circles and corporate events that once defined her life. She needed space to grieve, not just for the relationship that never truly was, but for the part of herself that had been so eager to believe in it. In the solitude of her penthouse, she began journaling, pouring out her emotions in raw, unfiltered prose. These late-night writings became a lifeline, helping her process the real story of her heartbreak and the hard-earned wisdom it brought. But healing is never linear. And even as Anna took her first steps toward recovery, a quiet question lingered in the corners of her mind. Could she ever trust again? Could she open her heart without fear of being deceived? The answers were far from clear, but one thing was certain. This chapter of her emotional story had irrevocably shaped her. And as she stood at the precipice of self-discovery, a new journey was already beginning, even if she couldn't yet see where it would lead. In the weeks that followed the heartbreak, Anna found herself peeling away the layers of her identity, much like someone renovating an old house, stripping the walls to their bare bones before deciding what to rebuild. She realized that for so long, her self-worth had been subtly entangled with how others perceived her. The CEO's daughter, the poised professional, the enviable socialite. But now, in this quiet aftermath, she was just Anna, a woman navigating her own emotional story without the need for applause or validation. Gone were the meticulously curated social events and the late nights spent in boardrooms proving her competence. Instead, Anna immersed herself in simpler, grounding activities: morning runs through the city park, spontaneous road trips, long afternoons spent reading under the sun. These ordinary moments, once overlooked, became the foundation of her healing. It's in these touching stories of rediscovery that we often find the most profound strength, not in grand gestures, but in reclaiming the small joys. Her friends noticed the change immediately. There was a new lightness in her step, a quieter confidence that didn't demand attention but radiated authenticity. They saw her not just surviving the betrayal, but transforming because of it. And though Anna didn't go around sharing the details of her real story with everyone, those close to her could sense that something within her had shifted forever. She was no longer the woman who needed someone else to complete her. She was becoming whole on her own. One afternoon, while sitting alone at her favorite cafe, Anna caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window. For the first time in months, she smiled, not out of obligation or politeness, but because she genuinely felt at peace. It was a moment she knew she'd always remember, a quiet victory over the pain that had once threatened to consume her. This emotional story wasn't ending with her finding someone new, but with her finding herself. As time passed, Anna began to embrace opportunities she might have previously ignored. She launched her own philanthropic initiative, supporting young women pursuing leadership roles, a cause that resonated deeply with her personal journey. Through this work, she connected with others who shared similar experiences of overcoming betrayal and self-doubt. These new relationships, grounded in authenticity and mutual respect, reminded her that not all connections were transactional or manipulative. Some, as her real story now proved, could be beautifully genuine. Though thoughts of Ethan occasionally drifted through her mind, they no longer carried the same weight. Instead of bitterness, she felt gratitude for the lessons learned, for the strength discovered, for the clarity gained. Every emotional story worth telling includes both heartbreak and healing, and Anna's was no different. She had loved, she had lost, and now she had grown in ways she never thought possible. And so, as Anna stood at the edge of a new chapter in her life, the city skyline stretched out before her like an open road. She didn't know exactly what lay ahead, but she no longer feared the unknown. Her journey toward empowerment had not erased the pain of her past, but it had reshaped it into something beautiful. And as every great emotional story reminds us, sometimes the most important love story we'll ever live is the one we write with ourselves. Now tell me, have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be someone else entirely? Anna's emotional story is more than just a tale of love and betrayal. It's a mirror, a reminder that sometimes the people we let closest are the ones who teach us the hardest lessons. But through heartbreak, she found her strength. Through lies, she uncovered the truth about herself. So what would you do in her place? Would you forgive? Would you walk away stronger or let it break you? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Let's talk about the moments that shaped you, the touching stories that changed your perspective, and the real story you carry in your heart. And if this story moved you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next twist-filled emotional journey, because the next story might just be yours.